G'day guys, and today Shorty and I are going to do the Cats Washup of season 2017 in what was a pretty solid year for the Cats. They didn't quite progress further than they did the year before, falling at the hurdle of the prelim final and losing in similar circumstances, which I'm sure we'll delve into at some stage pretty shortly, mate. But a pretty decent season overall. If you told me before the season started that we would make it to a prelim final, you'd probably take that on board. And pretty happy with where we ended, but in the way it ended, sort of not so happy. Not what we wanted there. But how did you see it? We'll have a bit of we'll sort of have a bit of a general discussion about the season at large, and then a bit of a highlight, low light, season highlight and low light. Mention the chopping block, who needs to go, what needs to change for the Cats to improve for next year and the years beyond. And I guess a later perspective of, are we going to stay, are we going to improve, are we going to go further, are we going to go down, or will we stay the same and keep our form that way? But yes, mate, the thoughts throughout the season, how did you view it overall?
Yeah, definitely, mate. It was one of those seasons that you look at as a whole and you say, yeah, it was fairly successful, I suppose, to win a final and be involved in the last four. On paper, that's reasonably good, but you can't help but be disappointed by it, I suppose, because we keep putting ourselves in these positions where you hope at some point you pinch one or you come up a bit further than maybe expected, a bit like Richmond and the Dogs. So we've been around the mark for a while now and haven't had a flag since 2011. I mean, some clubs who have got much bigger droughts will say that's nice and cute, but I think when you're up there you really want to grab a chance when maybe it wasn't meant for you. But look, I think as a whole it was a pretty good season. Again, at home we're nearly unbeatable. I mean, we're outstanding there, and that puts us in the top few spots of the ladder more often than not with that massive advantage we have down there. And there were some players who took a good step, which we'll talk about in a minute, but as we'll also talk about soon, it was some of the lesser lights that either didn't come on, or maybe our bottom six isn't as dynamic or that as deep as maybe some. And I think at times we were questioning the coaching as well, and I think that question still remains, even though the Sydney final was unbelievable and a fantastic coaching performance. But yeah, look, if I sit here and say what's my overriding feeling, it's probably disappointing still. I mean, you acknowledge that it's a good year and a winning year, and you like to be involved in finals, but I think we haven't won the flag, and you can't help but be disappointed with high standards.
Yeah, no, very spot on there, mate. I guess, I don't have too many, overriding thoughts. Got a couple of dot points, but yeah, it was a good season, but inconsistent at large. There was times where we looked unbeatable. There's times where we pinched it, a game where we shouldn't have pinched it. A couple of teams missing, crucial goals right in the last seconds, and we just managed to escape the other side, kick some goals right towards the end. And I tell you what, it was certainly a year of close escapes and out of jails more often than not. There was so many crazy wins there, but it showed that we were good in tight games, and that's always a good trait. I think we've had for quite a long time, I guess at least since those 2007 days where we sort of bounced up. And yeah, we've got a bit of a culture that generally, when it's tight and close, we'll find a way to at least mitigate the chance of losing, and as the case was against the Giants, more often than not coming out on top with a bit of luck and with a bit of system as well. It's not so much luck when you win it so many times. It's a fair bit of system. Players have been there for a long time that know what to do in those tight spaces, and inexperience from the opposition. But the disappointing thing, which you pretty much touched on, was the inability for us to handle the September heat once again. We found out wanting heavily in the Richmond final, Adelaide final, which we'll probably touch on pretty shortly. And a strong effort throughout the season, and some improvements from various players, and players that probably couldn't quite get on the park or didn't perform their role often enough. But a strong effort. But mate, we'll all start at 0-0 next year, and it's a very long way back to September. It's going to be very tough. Teams are going to improve. We could improve. We could stagnate. We could go down. Either or. It could go either way there. So our home ground, as you mentioned, will be invaluable with us getting some wins. And I think the home ground gets bashed a fair bit. The only reason we make finals or in the top 4 is because of Simmons Stadium. I think we're just a good side. That it's very tough when you're playing an interstate club when they're up in the ladder. When they're playing well, it's very hard to beat a Sydney in Sydney or an Adelaide in Adelaide, as we've seen this year, where it's exceptionally tough. So I don't think we get enough credit there for just being a good side over a long period of time, along with a good advantage and knowing how to execute on our home deck. So, yeah, look, it'll be a tough challenge next year, and who knows what will happen, mate.
Yeah, and we've earned that right to have a ground that no one else can play on. It's not just an accident that we don't have to play it. Eddie had an MCG like everyone else, so it's not just falling our way. We've worked pretty hard for that. But yeah, as you said, 0-0 at the start of next year, and there'll be as many clubs as we've ever seen before buying or thinking they can buy for top 8. So it's tough. Getting
more and more even, mate, as you said there, yep. And tens of millions of dollars into Simmons Stadium, so calm down, ladies and gentlemen. But we'll move in to the season highlight, and I love talking about the highlights and the lowlights. We'll start off with you, mates. What was your season highlight? So we'll discuss a bit of a game or sequence of games and mention maybe a player as well. So what was your season highlight?
Yeah, mate, I think definitely the Sydney final has to be my highlight. It was an unbelievable victory and a great display, particularly because we went into it really not expecting to win, and you don't go into too many games thinking that way when you barrack for a successful club. So to play that sort of football in a final, we had a lot of doubts against Sydney and on the MCG and just in finals in general under Chris Scott, and it was an unbelievable game. It's basically the perfect storm. Everything that we talk about and hope happens really did pan out that way, and it was super exciting watching it, and they're really what footy's all about, watching those games and getting excited in September, so that was really good. As for a player, I think there's a few to choose from, because a few guys did step up, but I've gone Tom Stewart. I think he was one man who really did surprise me. I think it's always a nice surprise when you get a player who turns into a genuine best 22 and someone that you see a long-term future at the club with when maybe you didn't expect it. And I must say, watching Tommy Stewart early days, considering he was mature age recruit, just in those first few matches, and that I felt he was going to be just a solid player and a good stopper and do his role type, but he's really turned into that and more. He's been able to add some genuine rebound, and he's quicker than I thought, and one-on-one he's quite strong, so I think he's been one that we've really been able to uncover as a player that should be at the club for a long time. So I think Tom Stewart, and he featured quite well on the best and fairest. I think he's deserving of a real highlight of a player that's taken a big step in his career.
And how about that run against Sydney as well, mate? That would have certainly done a lot of helping in justifying that case for him as well. It was probably one of the plays of the year, if you can call it that.
Yeah, absolutely, it was great.
Determination, but I've gone with the Bulldogs, the game at Simmons Stadium. I think we had lost 3 in a row at this stage, and we had about 40 tackles against Essendon or something like that. It was absolutely horrific, whatever the numbers were. And I think I remember Luke Darcy saying, it might have been even Jared Healy on AFL 360, you can just guarantee there's going to be so many more tackles next week. There's going to be 100 plus. 130, it was mid-130 tackles against the Dogs. We just went to town, we tackled, we hunted, we harassed. They had no time and space when they had the football, and the Dogs were travelling okay at this stage, so they weren't sort of becoming the basket case that they ended up being by the season's end. They were still going pretty well, and yeah, we just put on a massive display. I think so many players had career best tackles, as you would expect with such a high amount. I think Scott Selwood had about 18 or 19 or something like that. Mitch Duncan had 18. Paddy had a good 16 or so. Yeah, I think Joel Selwood went alright there as well. But yeah, there were so many players that just laid stacks of tackles, and that's what you get when you lay that many. And it felt as a real turning point because we had a tough run. Come up against some pretty good sides, and I think the Dogs, Port Adelaide was another one. And we really just dug deep and turned our season around when I think we were 3 in a row on a loss streak, which is the first time since 2006. So it was really good to see. And probably one of our favourite players, mate, outside of our favourite player, Rich Duncan. He has put the rubber stamp on being an A-grade player. I don't care who you are or whether you're a Geelong fan or not, but this guy, whether or not he's rated as an A-grade, he is. He was fantastic with going into the midfield, real contested style of game now. He's added an extra string to his bow there, tackles well. Still, his finishing hasn't been as exquisite as previous seasons, but that's partly due to the footy he's getting now, which is more inside, tough, hard grunt stuff, and he still is kicking the ball so well to players, and he was sensational in that final against Sydney as well. He had the ball on a string. And against the Giants too, he started off like a house on fire. So remember when he kicked that goal from 55, set shot, and just absolutely nailed it. And yeah, he's just been fantastic, and we love him, mate. He's a beauty, isn't he?
Yeah, he sure is. We probably always thought he'd become an absolute star, and definitely put it on the board this year. I think he'd been underrated for a couple of years anyway, but he really did up at a level, and he's certainly in the elite bracket now.
Very good, mate. We'll move on to the season low light. Probably not the funnest part to talk about, but I'll start off with this one. But really disappointed with the second tier players. At times they looked amazing. One game at Simmons Stadium, and the next game they go to the MCG and they play completely against what they had done before, and it just looked really shocking half the time. Just that, you've got your Murdochs of the world and your Langs and your Cole Jasneys, these guys that you just hope that they can put together a few really good games. And really, that's at the end of the day, that's probably what cost us by season's end. Just not being able to find a way with a number of players, just not enough contributors at times. And I guess so it's a whack to I guess a core group. And the prelim final, obviously, if we're talking about a game, it's pretty obvious here. All credit to Adelaide, they were amazing. They were way too good. We were probably never really going to beat them, but we went in with some optimism. And I think with the unexpected win against Sydney, you thought, oh, well, if we do everything right against Adelaide, we're a chance. But we gave them way too much time and space. They ran all those angles that they do, and that rebound off half-back was instrumental in them getting the win, and just not enough winners on the night, not enough willpower really. It's really tough to define it, and once they got those first few goals, the crowd was up and the game was pretty much over by quarter time. So no other season low like the game that knocks you out of the finals.
Yeah, no, that's right. I mean, it's hard to go past that really from my point of view. I mean, that first quarter was just terrible, and it was a bit like last year's preliminary, wasn't it? In Sydney, it had a lot of those same elements: pumped early, fight back, tease to maybe pull off a miracle comeback, but in reality, it was really never going to happen. But that was super disappointing. And as you touched on just before, the 3 losses in a row, I think to Collingwood, Gold Coast, and Essendon was also a bit of a low light. Hadn't done that for some time. But we did respond, as seen in one of your highlights. So, yeah, it's hard to go past that Adelaide final, and to a lesser extent the Richmond one too, because I think we can look at that Adelaide loss and say how bad it was, but, it's in Adelaide. Well, we really undid the top 4 finish by losing to Richmond at the MCG, I think. As soon as we lost that, we knew that the likely path to the grand final was a very difficult one, and we got over one hurdle, but the second proved too tough. So I think that Richmond one, where clearly they weren't at their absolute best, they got on a roll at the end of the game, but the game was there to be won late in the third and three-quarter time, and we didn't step up to the plate. So you're just left to wonder what if, but it doesn't really matter now because it brought us to Adelaide and that thumping happened. So disappointing stuff, mate.
For sure, yeah. Win that first final and you play a GWS at unlikely Simmons, or you play them at the G, and you'd probably back yourself in against the Giants, and you play Adelaide at the MCG, which they don't play that well there. So anyway, we won't speculate too much more there, but Christmas bonus was one I forgot to mention, mate, as well. So you can give this to a player that's not on the big bucks, but they took strides in their year, and I reckon I've got a player in mind. I reckon you might pip him, but go for it, mate. I'll put you on the spot here.
Yeah, well, I mean, I suppose immediately you sort of think Tommy Stewart as well, and it sort of ties in with the Mitch Duncans and the Tommy Stewart mould. But otherwise, I think maybe someone like Zach Tilley. I'm not sure how much he came to on the club with dollar-wise, but he certainly was very good for us, and his rebound was important, but I think even more so defensively he was really good. I think he kept a lot of quality forwards to very good goal tallies and sometimes goalers. So I think coupled with the fact that he's a brilliant ball user, defensively quite good as well, and that's what we needed, a bit of dash and good ball use off the back line. I'm not sure what the wage he's on at the moment, but I think he could probably deserve a little bit more because he's brought some good footy and certainly filled the void that we really needed. So, been good selection over the off-season for us there.
Yeah, fantastic pick there, mate. I'm tied between Lockie Henderson and Scotty Selwood here, but I'll give it to Lockie Henderson because I've given him a lot of plaudits this year. He's just been that fantastic sort of Matthew Scarlett replacement, as we've just been trying to pigeonhole with the Jared Rivers and now Lockie Henderson. Certainly not quite in the same vein, but look, his determination, his intercept ability has just been brilliant. He's popped up forward and kicked a couple of goals here and there when we've really needed them. And yeah, he's just really good one-on-one. And he's kicking, although he's got an interesting action, he's been pretty valuable as well. So he doesn't get beaten too often, and he's just a really good competitor and a good bloke around the club. So give Lockie a few extra, a couple $100 to maybe go to Crown and have a big night or something.
He was sending him to Crown, mate.
He gets a Christmas bonus and he loses it all. Poor bloke. Mate, your section here, right here, which you absolutely love, the chopping block. It's a weekly segment almost with the player review / chopping block, who needs to go out and what the side needs to change to get back on track. But I reckon there's quite clearly not too many different names we'll have on our lists, I suppose. But we've got Josh Cowan, who's been delisted, which would have definitely been one guy which would have had, yep, he's gone. Who have you got on your list, mate?
Yeah, I think quite a few of these guys will have been brought up in trade talks already, but I mean, we've been talking about him for a while. I mean, your likes of Menzel, some people are surprised that he'll be traded, but, you know, I have not been his biggest fan and have pushed for him to be traded probably since mid-year, and Mollop as well. Very good finals, but it looks as if he'll definitely be on the out. But your likes of Reece Stanley has to be cut. Jordan Murdoch just has to be cut. I mean, when you got these sort of guys who have been in your team, but then come the crunch, aren't there. I know Stanley was, but he got in on a late withdrawal and, you know, stayed in the side somehow. I don't think he's going to be a player that takes us forward too often. And Darcy Lang's another one, you know, a first-round pick that just hasn't worked. You know, Billy Smets and another one that, you know, a couple of drafting things haven't quite worked. That's a story for another day. But, yeah, there'll be a few guys that get talked about trade-wise. I think Motlop and Menzel are the main two for us. But there'll be a few players who get cut as well. I think those types, I like your Reece Stanleys and been around for a little while. You know, have got a reasonable chance to prove themselves. I think that's when now's probably the time. We've got to try and get some draftees in or get some draft picks by trading them potentially, but I don't think too many will be putting their hands up for Murdoch and Stanley, but certainly Menzel and Motlop are provoking a bit of injury, so there might be a few fringe types as well who get the chop, but at this point in time I think they would be the main notable guys that are up for debate, I would think. What do you reckon, mate?
Yeah, my list is somewhat short and sweet, but yeah, Stanley, chop. Whether you give him to Gold Coast, I don't think anyone cares about him. Cole Jasny's an interesting one because I really like him, but when it comes to the real crunch of it, is he is he a player that we see? I mean, is he a winger? Is he a defender? I'm not really sure yet. But I like him as a project player. He's had 3 years in the system now. Murdoch has to go. Probably his best year, but that's the ironic thing, actually. Holland Smith, he's on a contract still. I think he's got another year left to run, or maybe, I don't think he's got 2, but it'll be around that mark. He just hasn't been able to break into the side. He kicked a winning goal against North Melbourne, and I think he got injured, and then ever since then, Scott Selwood's sort of taken his role and will probably continue to play in that role. And he's just a bit of a one-trick pony. I think, as you said, mate, he can win a contested ball in the middle, but he's not quick at all and can't really break away under the intense heat. And those final 2 guys you mentioned there, Menzel will probably go, you'd say. Cats are very keen to move him on. Motlop, there's been big talks with Port Adelaide with a 3-year deal on the table potentially, and Darcy Lane could be the guy to get the Gary Ablett one over the line. Hearing on the couch, would have been the grand final on the couch with Hollywood, Mickey Warner saying that one, mate. So there's a bit of the scoop on that one. But yeah, look, there'll be a number of players which I hope go, and we need significant change if we want to go further ahead in season 2018.
Yeah, and we'll be pretty active once again in the old trade week. We often have been of late, but yeah, it'll be interesting. The exchanges, obviously, Gaz will either retire or come to us. Stringer, there's still talks. He seems more likely to go to Essendon. So does Devon Smith. But we might be in the market for Jack Watts potentially. Another discussion for another day, I suppose. And Sam Lloyd's another one. Stuart Cramley, I'm not sure where that's at, but that's been talked about. So obviously we're trying to change up that forward 50 dynamic with a few more mid-sized types who can be damaging and smart around goals. So we'll have to wait and see how that pans out. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see because we'll be pretty active again.
Yep, so we should, mate. We're in that right in the mix of the window. It could be closing pretty soon potentially, so we've got to... Yeah, flags are hard to win. Sometimes it could come back to bite us in your 4th click off the cliff a bit quicker than you expect afterwards, but you take it on board. But good segue, mate, into what needs to change, and I guess what the Cats need to do, and you've sort of touched on it a bit there with the forward line. I think, and I haven't put him on the chopping block, but Tommy Hawkins needs to change, I think, for Geelong to change. His best is really good. He's 6 goals against Carlton, 26 touches. He moves around, so we know he can. It's all between the ears this game, and he certainly is a player when his confidence is down, he can play horrible football. And he's had long enough, I think, to develop. You wouldn't trade him, but gee, you'd think he'd want to make some changes quick, smart, and really get his body maybe even leaner than you'd expect, because reality is he hasn't been able to manhandle defenders for years and doesn't effectively get separation. And I reckon a smaller forward line as well, and that sort of ties in with the point about Hawkins with needing to trim down a bit. The current trend is, and the last 2 premierships have gone to forward lines that are small and mobile and mid-sized. So it's all about pressure in the forward 50s. So you certainly don't want too many gorillas up there. You need Josh Kennedy, Lance Franklin types that can do it all up in the air, on the ground, and kick it through the big sticks as well. So that'll need to change. And I think just, I don't know, that back line probably a little bit leaner and smaller as well with, I guess, the changing industry of smaller forward lines.
Yeah, it's a tough one for Hawkins because the game can change over one off season, but to change your game and your body is probably going to take 2 to 3 pre-seasons. So I think he's definitely been trying to lean himself down, but he's never going to be mobile like a Lance Franklin. But yeah, I dare say, like we saw late in the season, he'll play further up the ground. But you're right, his confidence just abandoned him at times, and when that happens, he does look a real shadow of himself. So I'm not sure, mate. I mean, they're not going to trade him because you build a forward line around that sort of bloke, and yes, more forward lines are the flavour of the month, but you still need a guy who can take that big grab. I just think we need him doing a couple more things other than just waiting for the 3 or 4 one-on-ones you get in a game in the modern day. But yeah, Hawkins is a good point, and I think we've just got to try and get a bit more out of that bottom 6 to great players on a regular basis. I mean, that's not rocket science. It's what every club's looking for. But our top-end talent's really good, as we know. And I think we just need to try and get that forward-line mix that does look a little bit more like the modern day, as you said. Those sort of forward lines that can lock the ball in, intense pressure, but also quite got some football now, I suppose, around the goals and work quite well together. So that'll be one. But I guess the main thing is, can this current crop of players execute under finals heat? And I'd have to say no. And whether you can coach that or not, you could probably coach it 5 to 10% either way. But I think more or less you're probably born with it. You know, you've either developed that through your career already. It's hard to get to 25, and if you're not handling that heat, and you mentioned to me the other day, you know, a lot of our players are in that age bracket. If you're not handling the heat now, you can get slightly better, but more often than not, that's pretty much the brush you've been tarred with. So it's a tough one. I mean, I think we'll probably talk a little bit more about this when we discuss where the Cats are going next year, but I dare say we'll need to add a couple of things to this list if we want to contend again, I suppose. So that's probably a lead into what we'll go on in a sec. But yeah, a few things definitely need to change, mate, but it's not far off. Those things can be changed over an off-season, and you know, obviously we just hope to see that happen, and the coaching staff can hopefully get it right.
Yeah, absolutely spot on, mate. So Cats finishing second, and probably top 4 in the real live ladder, accounting for finals. So where are we going next year, mate? Are we going up to first or a premiership? Are we going down, or are we going to stay around the mark, stagnate?
Yeah, it's hard to say when the trade period hasn't finished yet, or even started at the moment. It starts on Monday, but look, if you ask me right now, with the list that we have, obviously Lonergan goes, Mackie goes. I think they're the two ones we know have gone as of this second. I would have to say down. I definitely see a drop-off, and I think we aren't far off a rebuild, to be honest. But if I want to glance forward and get the crystal ball out and presume that Motlop and Menz will go and a few change over from some fringe players, and we get Ablett and, you know, etc., then maybe we can stagnate. I'm not sure we're an Ablett away from a flag, but maybe if we draft wisely and get another Tom Stewart out of nowhere, or if we can convince Stringer or Devon Smith or someone, or maybe we reinvent Jack Watts. I'm not too sure. If a couple of those come through, and you could ask me the same thing in a couple of weeks' time, and maybe I'd be a little more optimistic, but I'd have to say optimistically stagnate, get yourself to top 4, and then you never quite know. But I think I would say it's more likely drifting down, at least at this point in time. But yeah, you've just got to wait and see, I suppose, because that'll really develop once the trade period, since we're going to be really active, once that pans out. It's a pretty tasty proposition to have Ablett, Selwood and Dangerfield either all in the midfield at certain points of time, or having one of Dangerfield or Ablett in the forward 50 is super exciting. But I do have a few fears that we will drop off pretty soon. Whether that's next year, maybe we can just keep ourselves afloat by trading well. And as we say, if you get to top 4 with our home ground advantage and a good list, we should be able to do top 4. If you get there, then it just depends what form you're in come finals time. So that's the optimistic view. But certainly the way we're attacking it with trading and keeping this list at that window area, a drop-off is imminent. And when it happens, I think it's going to be big. So hopefully it's not next year. But I think at this stage, my actual answer would be stagnate.
Alrighty, thanks, mate. Nicely summed up there. I'm going to say we're going to go down a little bit. I would probably, and down doesn't necessarily mean that bad because of how even the competition is. Excuse me. And look, with how flimsy a game can be, you have a Fremantle where they are streaming forward and Walters misses, or you have a game where Dangerfield kicks a goal and they beat Port Adelaide, or you have a game where Holland Smith kicks one before the siren. So and Isaac Smith misses again. So look, there's so many. We were lucky to finish second, but we also had the destiny in our own hands late in the season. But I would say we're probably, I could see a drop down to around the 6th mark. It's tough to say really with the trade, as you said, the trade period hasn't quite developed yet. If you do get a lot that goes right in the trade period and you execute well and a few players come through that you're wanting to come through, then improve our list, then you can sort of mount a better case for stagnation. But for right this moment, I'll say we'll go down a slight touch, but that isn't necessarily a bad thing either. Yeah, so a few key exits and a few holes to fill as well. So, and there'll be some tough roles to fill. Tommy Loddigan going out will be big, but it might also be a blessing in disguise with needing a smaller defence to get the job done. And I would see us going down slightly, matey. Tough times, but that's the review of the season of the Cats. The Cats wash up with myself and Shorty, and mate, it's been a pleasure to have you on board this year, and we'll be our final, I guess, Cats video for the year, you'd say, unless something absolutely crazy happens. I don't know what it'd be, but maybe Ablett comes in and is best on ground at home house or something like that. But look, it's been a pretty solid year for the Cats. Not quite what they wanted in the end, but you'd take it before the season started. You wouldn't take getting bashed up in a prelim final. But good stuff overall, and hopefully some key changes to be made to be on to bigger and better things in season 2018. So thanks for being on board this year, mate. Really appreciate having you on board, and it's been a good journey.
No worries, mate. Thanks for having me. It's been good fun.
Sweet. All right. Thanks for hanging around, guys. Don't forget to subscribe. Keep up to date with everything. Like the video, that'd be great as well. And thanks for all your support and sticking around. I'll catch you guys all next time.